Welcome to the Therapeutic Food Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Marian Mitchell. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, therapeutic diet expert, and founder of The Road to Living Whole. There are many different diets out there. It's hard to know which one is right for you with your chronic illness and autoimmune disease. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you the foundational pieces every single therapeutic diet out there shares, and also how to use the best one for your particular diagnosis. If you've been looking for a meal planning partner, help navigating the complicated healthcare system, and want to feel better quickly, I'm your girl. Grab your kombucha and notebook. Let's dive in. Today, I have a very special guest for you. As you know, this is the fourth in my series on small intestine bacterial overgrowth. In last week's episode, I walked you through what the phase 2 diet of SIBO treatment looks like, how it heals the body. And today I have a friend who became a client here to share her experience with being treated by Dr. Geyer first, and then moving into phase 2, the diet side of the program. And she's just going to share her experience with SIBO and, getting it treated and the diet and all of that stuff with you. So Belinda, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, Marian. First, thank you so much for having me on here. I am new to this podcast thing, so I'm excited and nervous all at the same time. I'm Belinda. I'm 54 years old. I have two girls, 22 and 25 years old, as well as I have two stepdaughters and then some stepsons who I call my own. I work in surgery a couple days a week, in eye surgery as a scrub tech. As well, I am an integrative health coach like you.
Yeah.
Just starting out, so I'm really excited. I'm hoping this helps others also who've gone through and are going through this SIBO gut journey thing. That's so fun. Just a little about me. I've sort of always been the one at work that's been like the healthy, quote, the healthy one. So I've always had kind of a passion for eating just whole, nutritious foods as a disease prevention. It started when my girls were young, and I just wanted to know other ways of taking care of ourselves. I saw that, not all conventional medicines were helping with some things that I was going through and my girls. And so this sort of started my journey for just how food is involved, quite honestly, in our health.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Belinda was a patient of Dr. Geyer's and was going to school at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is where I graduated from. Dr. Geyer connected us because of that. And then as our friendship grew and I started sharing what I do, she was like, "Oh, I'm being treated by SIBO right now." And I was like, "Oh, well, I have a program for that. When you're done with your treatment, you're going to move into that." And so that's kind of how Belinda and I kind of really came together. And I'm really excited that she's going to share this journey with you, because SIBO, as we all know, is a difficult one. It's difficult to get diagnosed. It's difficult to treat properly. It's difficult to move on from after it gets treated. So I'm excited for her to share with you. Would you mind sharing your SIBO journey? Where did you start? How did you get diagnosed? What treatments did you do? And then we'll move on to like the diet and all of that.
Sure. It started really in 2020. I have had kind of GI symptoms, poor sleep, fatigue, anxiety, throw menopause in there. So, when the whole fun 2020 happened, I also was having these health issues. Honestly, mostly it was sleep and just stress overall. And I couldn't figure out why. I just felt bad, fatigue, had low energy. I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising, but I just feel bad. So I actually went and saw another doctor first, had some labs done, and then we were treating my adrenals. And what happened was I had a really awful reaction to these natural medicines for my adrenals. And it spun me into like hyper overdrive for my nervous system. And so the long and short of it is a friend recommended Dr. Geyer. And so I switched and went to see Dr. Geyer in 2020, like the summer of 2020. I did lots more blood work, did some DNA testing, did some other GI testing, stool testing, did not do SIBO testing at first. Got the results with all that. And then Dr. Geyer's like, okay, let's test for SIBO. So I kind of procrastinated for a while. And in all that, it was probably some of the worst times of my life. I have never really experienced full-on panic attacks. And that started happening at night, and my sleep went down. Panic attacks started happening. It was for a short period of time, thankfully. And then I got the diagnosis of SIBO. And I think the biggest eye opener for me was realizing that whole gut brain connection that I've been learning about. I think we go along in life and we're like, oh, I have some like IBS symptoms, and I'm stressed and I can't sleep and I have anxiety, and we don't connect them all together like we're a whole person. And it was just really eye-opening and relieving to me to know that like I wasn't just this crazy person, like that something was actually going on in my body physiologically that added to anxiety, stress, sleep, fatigue, and all the other health. Some of my labs that were wonky. And it's true, if our gut is not healthy, it's hard to take care of the whole rest of your health until you kind of get to that healing, either whether it's SIBO, IBS, leaky gut syndrome. I know that it's just, we're all connected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And stress actually can stress over a long time can actually lead to SIBO, because stress changes our gut. It takes blood away from it. It takes resources away because our body's going into fight or flight. It's not always the cause. It's usually multifaceted, but sometimes it can be. From there, you get diagnosed, you're relieved. What does the treatment look like for you?
So we talked about the different options for treatment that Dr. Geyer does, which is one, the physician's elemental was an option, which is, well, I call it the white powder treatment. That you drink these, essential amino acids and minerals, vitamins for 2 weeks without food. The goal is to starve off the bacteria in your small intestines, and it does work, but it's hard. And then there's the rifaximin, the antibiotic, as well as herbal antibiotics. I asked Dr. Geyer, okay, well, what's how did I word it? The safest and kind of most cost-effective way to go. And she said, for sure, the elemental. She said that she didn't always recommend elemental first, but now that she's been treating people more and more with SIBO, that she's not against trying the elemental first. So I did the elemental. My results were so good. Wasn't quite gone as far as the testing goes on the breath test, but it was really super close. So we were excited. But what I did not do, Marian, was have you by my side for the food reintroduction for that go round. So even though I was following the specific carb diet mostly, it just wasn't the same exactly as I've been doing it now with you, following the different phases. So I also did a few weeks of rifaximin, and I did a few weeks of the herbal antibiotics. So really, I've done it all. And then we went back a second time, and I decided to do the elemental one more time. And with that time, the SIBO test came back negative.
Yay. So you really did it all. That's 4 treatments.
Yes, that was all over the period of probably about a year. in between all that time, I did have a lot going on in my life. To go back a little bit about the stress you were talking about, because I know this is a big deal. I had gone through a really hard time in my life. I'd had kind of SIBO symptoms through all this stress for about 20 years in my marriage. And I am convinced that a lot of my health issues have really been to just the stress my body was under during that time, and just not knowing how to manage my stress during those years. So I am really thankful for Dr. Geyer and you that have just helped come alongside me and know that we can treat this in a holistic way, that there's not really just one approach, and that the food is really super important when healing SIBO, but there's also other things emotionally that are a part of it.
Definitely. And as integrative nutrition health coaches, we know that food is a part of it, but there's this whole other side. We got stress, we got relationships, we got work, we got physical activity, we got all of these things. But it's like, and even, managing stress, like that's multifaceted. Food is huge, and having a support system that can walk alongside you during that season is just really important. And I'm so glad that you had that. So that's a year of treatment. And just from a coaching perspective, that's not uncommon. In fact, I feel like that's more common than not, especially by the time, if you've been having symptoms, and it's very possible you had it. It just came to a head in 2020, but it was there for so long. And, when it's there for so long, as we, Dr. Geyer talked about in our episode, sometimes it only brings it down so many points, depending on how bad it is. And so, I think we met when you were getting ready to do your second round of elemental. And I remember us talking, and you were like, this first week is great. The second week is really hard. But then you got your negative test, and it was like a huge party. Like I remember dancing on the phone with you. Like I was like, yeah, like it was really exciting because I know it's such a big deal.
It really is something to celebrate. I think until you are in it, I have some friends also that have SIBO, and it is really hard because it doesn't just affect like that you have bowel issues. It really affects your mental health because of that brain gut connection. And sometimes you can think you're going crazy. Like, why am I so stressed? Or why can't I handle this? Or why don't I feel good? Why am I tired? Like, especially for me personally, it's like, well, I eat healthy and I exercise. And I know I said that before, but it's like, what in the heck is going on? It was sort of just nice to put a diagnosis to it, and then to be able to really have to deal with myself, if you will, to go, okay, now it's time to take care of yourself, and what does that look like in a holistic way? So getting that negative SIBO test, it is something to rejoice about. It takes hard work. And I think probably having a team, having support from people who know you're not crazy, from your doctors, health coaches, friends, family, or maybe just even those who understand, how our body works, that this is a real thing, made all the difference and has made all the difference for me during this time. And just to remind ourselves that it didn't happen overnight. And so it doesn't go away overnight. And because our health is multifaceted, spiritually, emotionally, physically, that we're all connected, to just be patient with ourselves, extend some grace and go, okay, it's one moment at a time. Like you said, we've talked about, it's like untangling that necklace maybe, or the peeling of an onion, that it's not ever really just one thing. It's really usually multiple things. And that's okay, because our bodies are amazing and they were actually created to do specific things, and they can heal, and our bodies are actually for us and not against us.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the coaching coming out of you. Like that was beautiful. And it's absolutely true. You guys, everything that she said, absolutely true. So let's talk a little bit about the diet program. So you did it first with just the handouts, and then the second time you used my program. Can you just give people a little bit of insight into what that was like and, was it worth the investment and all of that?
Yes, for sure. It was worth the investment a million times over. I know we've talked about it before that coaches need coaches, and I am really, really thankful for you for one. Your program has made it so much simpler for me. Just to be able to have starting out, you've provided me a list with like the foods that I can have rather than what not to have, like what I can have. Your recipes and your lists had just made my steps really simple, especially during this first phase 1 and 2 when food is more restricted, and that's just the bottom line of it. There are some things that are negatives and some things that are positives. But to be able to have it written out for me just made all the difference, because I could just go back and reference this. And honestly, even if I went out to eat somewhere, I could just modify. So if I wanted to get, a burger, I can just do the plain patty and have some roasted vegetables with it. It is more simple than we make it. I think sometimes, it's just that we're used to eating so many different things all at once. I think the biggest deal was to reintroduce into my body like one item at a time, so to speak, like, some eggs and then, some roasted squash. I think my body was rejoicing, like, wow, I don't have all this stuff to digest and I can do it more easily. Almost like when you're a baby and you introduce, little portions of food and fruits and vegetables at first, it's like starting all over. And I think just that in and of itself is really healing for our digestive tract for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you found it helpful. That's my goal, is to make it as simple as possible because, I mean, the goal is to help heal the damage that's been done. And it's so much easier to know what we can have and to have some recipes we already can start with. And then I feel like most people, once you kind of know what you can do, tend to modify and create their own recipes and all that. And so that's always my goal. And it's like, you've been healthy your whole life. So for you, like, again, the meal plans kind of go, oh, okay, these are like, if we take phases 1, 2, and 3 all together, it's like 40 recipes, and it's including desserts and it's including stuff for the sweet tooth and it's including very real things just to give you an idea. And if you don't eat it all, I'm not offended, but hopefully you find things that you can enjoy in this process because food is an experience. It's something to be enjoyed. I love to enjoy my food. It's not just calories. And I think most of us are that way. So I'm really glad that you found it helpful.
Yes. Also, I was just going to say, as far as the coaching is concerned, some of the other things that have been really helpful for me is just to be able to have you there to when I'm feeling down or like, say I have a bad day or I have some symptoms and I'm like, oh my gosh, is it SIBO back? To just have you there to remind me, like, maybe it was just a reaction to a new food that you tried or some stress or whatever, that it doesn't necessarily mean that, SIBO is back. And just to have that encouragement from a coach is a big deal. Just I think as humans, we're created, we need that. And for me, I've been really grateful, Marian, just to have you remind me, like, okay, hold on, it's going to take some time. Let's just take it one more step at a time, go back and maybe try this and see what happens. So
I'm glad. That's my goal. And and she didn't get this support just because she's a friend. This is just how I am as a coach. Like, I want to be able to, I know that like things are going to get wonky. And when the body's healing, sometimes things get off and it's scary and we're afraid it's coming back. We feel like a failure. Oh no, I messed up. And I want to be there. And any coach would. I know, you will be for your clients too. Like, we know what you're going through and we want to make sure that you are successful and you come out on the other side better and healthier than when you started. And I'm really glad that I'm glad that you reached out and took advantage of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to bother, or I don't want to be told I'm doing it wrong. And, I feel like you were on vacation a lot during phase 3.
Yes.
And, you came back and, you had some symptoms and we were able to kind of talk through that. And then you got on the other side. And now you're in the reintroduction phases.
Right. It is pretty amazing to see how our body can heal, when given the right tools as well. Just incorporating some other practices, just walking. Walking has been a big deal for me because my energy levels have been low. I've just tried to listen to my body about, what type of exercises to do. So walking, yoga, some light weights, getting out in the morning sun, and just some, whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, gratitude, those also have been all things that have really helped me. And honestly, especially when you start worrying again about your health, because I think as working moms, working women, I know I have friends that are single moms, and it's so hard. They literally will say, I just don't have time to take care of myself. So just to be reminded that sometimes this is one thing you have really put into my mind, is just taking those baby steps, like whether it's 5 minutes, a day in the morning, maybe journaling or walking, or it's just adding in, more vegetables, or just have it be simple, and just taking small steps, because it is overwhelming. And then when it has to do with your health and you're thinking, what's wrong with me? Am I going to be okay? And then that fear sets in. It's really nice to have people around you and a team and a coach, for me, to just go, that can be objective and not be in my subjective little world and help kind of bring me out of that and just be an encouragement.
I'm so glad. That was so good. Even though you're still kind of working through your journey, you're getting ready to do a second test to make sure the SIBO has stayed gone and all of that, you're reintroducing, I feel like that was super encouraging, but is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with before we finish?
Well, a couple things I think of is that to be patient with yourself, that it does take time, that our bodies really are for us and they want to heal. And there's so many things that we can do to initiate that process. And also to seek out that help that you need. Not all doctors are created equal. I hope it's okay I say this.
Oh, totally fine.
Just to find, if you're needing to find a doctor, find one that is going to look at the big picture, because a lot of conventional doctors, nothing against conventional doctors, I have just found in my experience that naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors, holistic practitioners, they just get a little bit bigger picture as far as the testing that they do. I don't know that I ever would have found out even what SIBO was had I not gone to Dr. Geyer. And to just somehow, especially if you're a working mom, if you're a single mom, take that time to take care of yourself, ask for help, see if you can work with somebody maybe that can work with you financially. I just think there's lots of options out there. And start small. Start by doing little things in the morning and managing your stress, just to remember that you're valuable, and that we should really just learn that it's okay to love ourselves, even as busy working moms, and loving ourselves means maybe some self-care.
Thank you. I love all of that. And I know getting permission to do that is just huge.
Yes, giving ourselves some permission for sure. you know.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I've been sitting over here like, oh, this is so great. So I'm really glad. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you found this episode helpful, would you do me a favor and help others find it by leaving a review, sharing a screenshot on social media, or sharing the link with a friend? By you sharing what you've learned, others are able to find this podcast and join our community. Be sure to check out my website, www.roadtolivinghole.com, for over 160 delicious recipes, a variety of meal plans, and a blog packed full of even more healthy living tips. If you'd like to learn more about how to work with me as your coach, you can schedule a free consult through www.roadtolivinghole.com/health-coaching/. Until next time, friend. Bye.